Welcome back. Let's do some exploration of lab number 6 and deploying our edge nodes. That's what this is all about, deploying some edge transport nodes. So if we look at our diagram, if we look at the lab diagram that we kick off with, we can see that we're going to use vCenter Server and NSX Manager to deploy two NSX edge nodes, SA NSX Edge 01 and SA NSX Edge 02. That's all we're working on. All we're going to get into in this lab. So let's get into it. Well, we're not just going to deploy two. We're going to create an edge cluster as well. Let's not forget that. So 3 tasks: prepare, deploy the edge nodes, create the edge cluster. So what do we have going on? We're gonna open up. If we don't already have them opened, we want to make sure we have vSphere, our vSphere client, which is right there. I'm going to go ahead and close this web console. We don't need that right now. And the NSX UI. Right? If you don't have those open, go ahead and get logged into them real quick, and we'll start in. So we need to deploy some edge nodes so that we have resources on which to place our routing components, or some of our routing and our network services components. So let's go over to the System tab, and under Configuration, let's go into Fabric. If you don't have that expanded out, go ahead and expand that. We want to select Nodes. And here we want to come in and look at our edge transport nodes. Now, this is empty right now. There's no edge transport nodes available. We want to add one. That's what we're going to deploy here. So we're going to go ahead and set this up with a name, Edge, SA NSX Edge 01. That's just an object name for NSX. The host name, let's make sure I get this typed right. SA-NSX Edge 01.vclass.local. That, and what else do we want to do? Let's do a small form factor. Small form factor. We don't need a big one. This is a lab, right? If it was more than a lab, or then we'll go ahead and do something naturally larger. But here a small edge is going to be just fine. Let's go ahead and next, and set up our credentials. Now we're going to use the same credentials as we did for NSX Manager, VMware 1 exclamation, VMware 1 exclamation. So what am I going to do? I'm going to copy and paste. You know at this point how much I love copy and paste for things like this. That way, I know I'm getting things set properly. I want to go ahead and allow SSH login. We'll set the same exact password for my root credentials, and we'll go ahead and allow root SSH login. You'll probably, well, not probably, you will use a different password for the two in your production environments. And you may not allow direct root SSH login, right? That may not be a thing that we do in our production environments. But we're going to do it here. Right? We're going to do it here. So that's all right. That's all right. We'll go ahead and hit Next, and we want to define where we want this deployed, right? So we're going to choose our vCenter server, and we'll go ahead and put this in our management cluster. We'll go ahead and not worry about directly placing in a resource pool or on a specific host. We're not going to worry too much about that. We want SA shared 01-NSX as our data store. Let's go ahead and hit Next and choose a static IP assignment. Now this is going to be 172.20, right? .10. Remember, this is going to be on the management network. We're configuring the management interface for the edge. So there's that 172.20.10. .61. And this does have to come in here as CIDR notated, so we don't have a specific field for the net mask or the subnet mask for the NSX manager. So we just do that in the IP notation. 172.20.10.61/24. We'll go ahead and set up our default gateway, 172.20.10.10. .10 here. It's not .1, it's .10. We'll go ahead and select a management interface. Now, we just want, conveniently, it's right on top, PGSA management. We want to connect this to our management port group. We'll save that here. And then we want to plug in things like some search domains. We're in the vclass.local domain, so we'll go ahead and do that. Our DNS server is the same as our gateway, 172.20.10.10. But our NTP server is different, 172.20.10.100. I know it might look like it could be a typo. It's not, I promise. These are two separate systems. Uniform pass-through mode, we don't have any kind of smart NICs available to us here, so we'll leave that at no. We'll go ahead and hit next here. And then we need to start doing some configuration of our host switching on the edge node. So let's call this prod overlay NVDS. And because we called it prod overlay NVDS, we'll put it in the prod overlay transport zone. We'll go ahead and use the edge single NIC uplink profile and the same IP pool that we used for our ESXi hosts. So we'll configure that out of the same pool of addresses, and we'll go ahead and select our interface. And this is our overlay network, so we'll connect this to PGSA Edge overlay. Right, overlay to overlay. That's what we're looking for. Now, we may think we want to hit finish here, but we're not done yet. So we need to scroll all the way back up to the top and hit this add switch link right there. Add a switch. There's my prod overlay NVDS, right? That's all collapsed now. I need to create a new node switch. And we're going to call this one prod VLAN NVDS. And we called it prod VLAN NVDS. Let's go ahead and put this in our prod VLAN transport zone. We're going to use the same single NIC uplink profile, and we will go ahead, when we select our uplinks, we'll connect uplink to VLAN to uplinks, right? PGSA Edge uplinks. So this what we're creating here is a host switch where we're going to connect to the physical network, right? The overlay NVDS, that connects us to our overlay network, but the VLAN NVDS, that's going to connect us to the external network, to our uplink. So we've got our two virtual switches now. Let's go ahead and finish this and see what happens. We see we've got our edge node. I'm going to refresh this once here, and we can see our configuration state. And it says deployment in progress. Deployment in progress. Now, while that is showing deployment in progress, if we come back over here to vCenter, we can see down here we've got a deploy OVF template task for the virtual machine that's being created. And if we expand out the management cluster, there is my SA NSX Edge 02 virtual machine. So, we have this started. Now it's a matter of waiting. This configuration state is going to show us all kinds of stuff. It'll even show things like configuration error or things like that periodically. So, just keep that in mind. We're going to go ahead and fast forward through this. So we'll come back when this first edge has been deployed, and we'll see what we can do for the second edge. So hang tight here. All right, there is our first edge node. And if you sat and you watched, you had to be patient for a while, didn't you? If you sat and you watched, you saw it go through all kinds of configuration states, even some that looked pretty bad. They said things like configuration error or node not ready or things like that. The node status over here that says up right now went through everything from unknown to degraded to up. It looked kind of bad. It's just all part of the process. So we just have to be ready for it. And just to get you a little more practice, we're going to do it one more time. I'm gonna do it one more time. And we're gonna deploy SA NSX Edge 02. And we're gonna give it a host name of NSX Edge 02.vclass.local. That looks right. And again, we're going to deploy this as a small form factor VM. Credentials, let's go back, and just to be safe, I don't think I copied anything in between, but we'll make sure that my clipboard has the right password on it. Again, we want to go ahead and allow what in the world is that? Like everything is on do not disturb. All right, let's go back to starting NSX Edge 2 deployment. All right, there we are. It's done. The configuration state is successful. The node status is up. SA NSX Edge 01 has been successfully deployed. And it looks great. But if you sat here and watched through all that time, what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it was, uh, if you sat there and watched all of that, well, it kind of looked a little questionable there for a bit, didn't it? Right? We saw configuration state of everything from installing to configuration error to registration pending to all kinds of stuff like that. Right? We saw the node status show unknown and degraded, and now finally up. I mean, we saw a bunch of stuff that didn't look good. It's all part of the process. All we have to do is be patient with our edge deployments, and in our lab, we have to be a little bit more patient, maybe than we do in our production environments. But we get a little bit of practice. We get to see it all one more time. So let's add another edge node here, SA NSX Edge 02, right? And we'll go ahead and we can get through that alarm. We may see that alarm pop up about the edge if you stop and look at it. It's related to the edge we just deployed, but it's not that big a deal in the context of our lab, right? We run our lab in a very, very, very resource constrained infrastructure, right? Meaning that we've tightened up all of these virtual machines as much as we can to get reliable function. And that does mean some of these alarms pop up sometimes. So it's not a big deal in our environment. You see that in your production environment, it's probably a different story. Our host name here, SANSX Edge 02.vclass.local. So we're going to do that. We're going to run a small form factor again because we want all of our edge nodes inside the context of a cluster to be the same size. We'll go ahead and hit next here. Let's go ahead and double check that I don't have anything on my clipboard or that I still have the root password on my clipboard. I don't think I copied anything between now and the last edge we deployed, but let's do it again just to be safe. We'll paste in the password. We want to allow SSH, and we want the root password to be the same. We want to allow root SSH here. We'll go ahead and hit next. In our deployment, again, SAVCSA01. We want to put this in the management cluster. We want to put this on the SA shared 01 NSX data store. Next, what do we have going on? We want another static configuration. Again, we're looking at our management interface. So that's going to go on our management network 172.20.10. Edge 02 has a .62 final octet. And we're going to do a /24 CIDR mask here. And we saw this. Let's get rid of that comma. You almost can't see that comma that I accidentally put in there. So there we have that. We're going to select our management network for the management interface and vclass.local for the search domain. 172.20.10.10 for the DNS server, 172.20.10.100 for the NTP server. No universal pass-through. Next, we're going to configure NSX. And if you remember, we're going to do this exactly the same as what we just did. So we're going to create our prod overlay NVDS. And since that's called overlay, we'll go ahead and put that in the overlay transport zone. We will use our single NIC uplink profile and an IP pool. And we'll go ahead and do that with a TEP IP pool. We'll select our interface, and we want the PGSA Edge overlay port group. That'll put us in the right spot here. Don't hit finish. Don't do it. We want to go back up and add another host switch. So prod VLAN NVDS. Right, remember, we need one NVDS to get us to our overlay network, another one, just the way we're configuring this. And notice, I say just because of how we're configuring this, right? I could select multiple transport zones. I can do that if I need to. Don't do that here. We're not configuring that this way here. Right? In a production environment, we have a single NVDS option that we really shoot for, that we really push for a number of different reasons. In our lab environment, it's easier for us, just the nature of how our lab environment, the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure is set up. It's easier for us to deal with separation by virtual switch. So we're just going to do that here. We're going to do our Edge single NIC uplink profile. And we're going to go ahead and attach that to our SA NSX or SA Edge uplinks profile, or not profile, port group. Started with a P, right? So we'll go ahead and let's scroll up and double check. We've got our overlay NVDS and our VLAN NVDS. Great. Let's go ahead and finish that. And now we are back to a waiting game. Right? So let's refresh this and see that we are deploying. We can validate that we're deploying by coming into vCenter. Look, there's another deploy OVF template. This is a new one. It just started. So we're going to go ahead and come back to NSX and wait. And we'll go ahead and return when SA NSX Edge 02 has finished deployment. So we'll be back soon. All right. We're back. Well, we're not back. We just skipped all the waiting part, right? So now we've got our two edge nodes deployed. And again, we saw all kinds of interesting messages pop up. Realistically, most of those are actually okay. Now we've got one more thing that we want to do in this lab. And that's add these two edge nodes to an edge cluster so that we can start to consume them moving forward. So we just need to move over here to the Edge Clusters tab, just one tab to the right, and we're going to add an Edge cluster. We're just going to click that button. We're going to give this a name, Edge Cluster 01. That'll work. Edge nodes, small edge nodes, so we can give it that. We're going to have to select an edge cluster profile. We'll just use the default. That's just fine. And we want to look at our available edge nodes. We've got two of them, so I'm just going to check the box under available instead of checking the box next to 1 and 2 individually, and hit the right-hand arrow that says Add to Selected, and poof, there they go. We've moved the edge nodes from the available to the selected column, and we just want to hit Add. And there is the edge cluster. And if we come over here under Edge Transport Nodes and click 2, there we go. Got to get the mouse lined up right. Click 2, we see that pops up and shows us NSX Edge 01 and NSX Edge 02. Both of these transport nodes are members of this Edge Cluster 01. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now we're done with this lab. So come back. We've got more cool stuff to talk about, more neat labs to do. We'll see you soon.